In this video, we're gonna finally break down Remielle. Everything about her in her kit breakdown, team synergies, how to build her the right way, and way more. As a reminder, all the content in this video is from the creator beta server of Zenless Zone Zero. As such, some information, results, and values may slightly change for full release in just a few days. With that being said, let's break down our new Lumiflux Void Hunter, Remielle. Remielle is our upcoming S-rank Lumiflux Anomaly Agent, who is also our newest Void Hunter. She primarily functions as a quick swap main DPS. She has a ton going for her and will absolutely become the new core of every Anomaly team. Before we really dive into her, we need to talk about Lumiflux and all of the new changes to Anomaly. There's two main mechanics with the new Lumiflux attribute, and they have a unique Anomaly build-up method. The first is called Attribute Flux, and basically just changes Remielle's damage type to be the next agent. In other words, if you have Valina right after Remielle, like in this team, she will become wind damage. However, this doesn't change Lumiflux's attribute anomaly, which is called Refringe. You'll notice here on the enemy that there's 4 ticks instead of a meter for building up anomaly. This is because Lumiflux will apply stacks of Lumiflux buildup rather than the meter. When the enemy is about to enter any attribute anomaly, you'll trigger the Refringe. This will do a lot more base damage as the Refringe coefficient increases. We'll see more about this coefficient when we talk about Remielle's core passives, so don't worry about it yet. Overall, don't worry too much about the different terminology. The gameplay is still pretty similar, you'll just be doing a lot more damage. Now let's start diving into Remielle and what makes her so cool and strong. Let's begin by talking about her important concepts, starting with this meter and these pips and this whole cool apparatus going on below her character profile LinkedIn picture. This meter holds the Floating Radiance, which is Remielle's special DPS resource and has a maximum of 120 points. Plus, you'll get all 120 right when you enter the battlefield. The main thing about this resource is that it will be used to use EX Special or regular special into Stance Shift, and ultimately, Remielle's primary gameplay loop. She'll do this floating animation and immediately go off field, but still continue to attack. Indeed, this is Remielle's second important concept called Phase Flow State, and she'll continue to apply Lumiflux buildup and a huge damage increase to all squad members. This state will continually drain the floating radiance, but you'll never have to worry about running out because her gameplay loop is so fluid. When Remielle is in this off-field phase flow state, the main goal you should have is to trigger Refringe 3 times. Each time you do trigger Refringe, or just before the enemy gets an attribute anomaly, you'll gain one of these pips on her apparatus meter, called Void Flare. And oh boy, here's where the damage comes in. And I mean the biggest damage in the entire game. With all 3 Void Flares or these pips stored, you will then gain the ability to switch Remielle back onto the field in a spectacular way. This will trigger Remielle's assist skill, Flower and Feather Dance. This unleashes a massive area of attack, consumes 40 floating radiance, and deals a crap ton of Lumiflux damage. If you have 90 or fewer floating radiance when you activate this, you won't spend any floating radiance, and will just go straight into the luminous reflection state. You'll notice here that it upgrades the basic attack Rainbow's End into basic attack Fleeting Grace. So for further information on that, let's officially head into the kit breakdown section. Basic attack Leap is 4 attacks forward, and will gain floating radiance on hit, and on the 4th hit, you'll gain 1 of the 4 needed Lumiflux buildups. Once you get into Remielle's general gameplay loop, you won't ever think about using this too much, or the basic attack Solo Dance, which is when you hold down the basic attack button. Now here's the big damage. Basic attack Rainbow's End is when Remielle has Void Flare. Ultimately, this one actually won't get used that much either, because there's the upgraded form called Fleeting Grace that we talked about. Either way, Rainbow's End will grant a large amount of floating radiance, and will trigger Luminize, which is just another very powerful form of attribute anomaly damage. The reason I said Rainbow's End won't get used that much is because you'll consistently be upgrading it to Fleeting Grace. This move by itself is the single most powerful move in all of Zenless Zone Zero. You will consume all of your Void Flare and unleash a powerful, and that's an understatement, large area attack ahead, dealing Lumiflux damage. The best part about this is that this will loop back into her gameplay cycle by granting an immense amount of floating radiance when the skill ends. And when this hits a target, it'll trigger that Luminize attribute effect with a multiplier of 320% and light up your screen like fireworks. And this is her gameplay loop. With Floating Radiance, you'll switch her out into Phase Flow state, trigger Refringe with your other anomaly characters, and then bring her back onto the field with her assist skill, consume all the Void Flare to use Fleeting Grace, and then every enemy just dies. Everything else in her kit just makes the gameplay loop simpler and adds to her power. Chain Attack will enter that Luminous Reflection state by upgrading the basic attack to Fleeting Grace and apply to Lumiflux buildup. All of her dodges and other assist attacks are all normal. Her special attacks don't really get used that much other than to put her into the phase shift, and her EX special attack, Ode to Dawn, will unleash a powerful attack dealing Lumiflux damage and give you 2 Lumiflux buildup as well. When your decibel rating's at 3000, aka the max, you know what time it is. Press Q to activate Ultimate Dazzling Curtain Call, dealing a large amount of Lumiflux damage in a huge area, triggering Luminize for 336%, and you'll be invulnerable during the skill. As for her kit, I know it seems like there's a lot of terminology, but it really plays pretty easily, and you'll definitely be able to get the hang of her fairly quickly. But now let's move on to the core passive, starting with Temporal Patterns equals Stilled Colors. And here's where that refringe coefficient we mentioned earlier comes into play, because it will be equal to 0.02 of her anomaly proficiency. This will also increase by another 10% if there's 3 anomaly characters in your squad, which I highly recommend. The rest of this first blurb just tells us about how she'll generate Void Flare when you trigger Refringe, and then we have this big block of text. If her assist skill, Ultimate, Basic Attack Rainbow's End, or Basic Attack Fleeting Grace hits a target, Luminize will be triggered. The damage of this multiplier is further increased by 0.2% of her anomaly proficiency. Additional ability Invitation to Bloom triggers when there's an anomaly character or the same faction in your squad, and depending on how many anomaly characters you have in your squad, you'll gain an attack increase equal to 6, 12, or 40% of Remielle's initial attack, up to 1600. Additionally, while you're in Remielle's off-field phase flow state, her days dealt will increase by 6, 12, or 35%. But we're not done, because when Remielle applies Lumiflux buildup to any enemy, she'll also inflict Prismatic, which basically says that all squad members attacking an enemy affected by this will have an anomaly buildup rate increase of 15%, and when you run out of Lumiflux buildup, you'll still have this effect for 8 seconds, but it will eventually be removed. Now let's move on to the easiest team synergy section in the history of Zenless Zone Zero. All you have to do for Remielle to be successful is pair her with anomaly agents. That's it. As of right now, I would say her best partner is probably Valina, but it's hard to really say because you can pair her with pretty much everyone. If you look at this team page right here on your screen, this isn't even half of the teams that she can use because she's so overly versatile. My favorite team to use was Remielle, Jane, and Valina. And don't forget that Jane Doe is getting buffed in the Vision Potential system, and you should totally check out that video. I personally opted to have Remielle do wind damage by putting Valina second, but you could also put Jane in that place instead, and the core of this team, and pretty much all the other ones, is to generate Void Flares. Out of every team that we can talk about, this team right here, in all of Zenless Zone Zero, has the highest burst potential, which is so awesome to say because Jane Doe is one of my favorites. Between Remielle and Valina, you're already getting a crap ton of anomaly buffs and stronger damage buffs, and Jane is just a damage machine. However, if you don't have Jane Doe, first of all, what the heck are you doing? Second, you can switch out for Arya, Promia, or, like I said, pretty much the entire anomaly cast. I even used Piper and was able to easily 3-star Shiyu 5. So, as a recap for the team synergy, pair Remielle with 2 other anomaly agents so you can max out all of her buffs, generate your Void Flares when she's in phase flow state, and then do unbelievable damage. Moving on to another easy section for Remielle is her best build section. Starting with the W engines, the best in slot will be the signature made for her, Ode of Resurrected Wings. Remielle's best stats are anomaly proficiency and attack percent, so it's a good thing that our advanced stat is attack percent. Aside from this, we get a free 96 anomaly proficiency, and when you trigger a refringe reaction, Remielle will gain 20% increased anomaly damage, and all squad members gain 30% increased damage, both lasting 30 seconds, and repeated triggers resetting the duration. As for W Engine versus Mindscape 1, this one is a bit closer, but I still barely give the edge to the W Engine. As for other choices, make sure to use something that gives anomaly proficiency or attack, even if she doesn't get the main effect of some of these engines, like Flamemaker Shaker, Flight of Fancy, etc. You can even get away with using a couple of the A-rank engines like Electro Lip Gloss, Weeping Gemini, just because of their advanced stats, and they're a lot easier, more general for any unit to get the effect of. There's only one 4-piece you should ever use on Remielle, and that is the brand new one called Feathered Fate. It'll boost your anomaly proficiency by 30 for the 2-piece, and when Remielle is switched to the active character on the battlefield, you'll gain a buff for 15 seconds that increases anomaly proficiency by 50, and since she's Lumiflux, attribute anomaly damage by another 15%. This will remain in effect even if she's not the currently active character. As for 2 pieces, there's only a couple of options you should really use, and that's the anomaly proficiency boosters, which of course is either Chaos Jazz or Freedom Blues. As for main stats, slot 4 should be anomaly proficiency, slot 5 should be attack percent, and slot 6 should also be attack percent. Substats follow the same priority, with anomaly proficiency being the most important, followed by attack percent, then attack, then the rest. For those of you who want an even more Void Hunter-y Remielle, let's talk about some Mindscapes. Mindscape 1 gives Remielle 3 special Void Flare right when you enter the battlefield. Whenever Remielle triggers Luminize to deal damage, she'll ignore 50% of the target's all attribute resistance, and when using her assist back onto the field, she'll gain 200 decibels. That can trigger once every 18 seconds, and while Remielle's in phase flow, other squad members' attribute anomaly will increase by another 10%. This is already a very valuable Mindscape, and Mindscape 2 is even better! First, Remielle's refringe coefficient will increase by 20%, meaning more damage, and when an anomaly character in the squad deals attribute anomaly damage to anybody affected by that prismatic debuff, the attack will ignore 15% of the target's defense. Just like prismatic, this will last for 8 seconds after it ends. While Remielle is also in phase flow, the frequency at which she launches attacks to apply a Lumiflux buildup will increase. Mindscape 4 raises the Luminize damage multiplier by an additional 12%, and when Remielle enters the battlefield and gains 3 special Void Flare, like we saw in Mindscape 1, if they're all consumed, she'll immediately gain the max number of special Void Flare again! And this effect will be removed after triggering it once, or if you enter the phase flow state. With Mindscape 6, when Remielle uses either of her really strong basic attacks, Luminize is triggered twice. If the 4th hit of her basic attack lands, Remielle will gain 3 special Void Flare after the move ends. Special Void Flare gained this way deal damage equal to 25% of the special Void Flare gained upon entering the battlefield. But there you have it for a full Remielle Early Access Guides, First Impressions, and Review. Of every character that's released in Zenless so far, she is probably the biggest one that you need to pull, and by far the strongest. She is an absolute staple in Anomaly teams now, and probably will be for the foreseeable future. Of all the characters we've had recently, she feels like the most impactful for any account in the game, whether you're free to play, or newer, or if you're a seasoned veteran. She's that versatile and that powerful, while still being very simple. But I want to hear from all of you. What do you think of our newest Void Hunter? And how many copies are you going to pull? If you enjoyed this guide, make sure to like the video and subscribe for way more Zenless Zone Zero, as I have tons of cool videos planned and I don't want you to miss them. In the meantime, enjoy the Zenless anniversary, and may Remielle Dan Wanters be Remielle Dan Havers. Good luck on your polls, and remember that you're all loved. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.